Machiavelli's hidden secret, the one trait of powerful confidence. What if I told you that everything you think you know about confidence is wrong? That the version of confidence we've been sold, loud, dominant, unshakable, is actually hollow? That most people walking around with puffed chests and booming voices are not confident at all, but deeply afraid. Afraid of being found out, afraid of being questioned, afraid of losing control. And what if I told you that Niccolo Machiavelli, the man most famous for the phrase, "It is better to be feared than loved," actually hid within his writings a secret that reveals the real source of powerful confidence, the kind that doesn't need to posture, doesn't need to manipulate, and doesn't need validation. That secret is not what you think. It's not ruthlessness, it's not charm, it's not even power. It's something much more rare and much more dangerous. When Machiavelli wrote The Prince, most people assumed it was a handbook for tyrants, and in some ways it is. But if you read between the lines, if you go deeper than the surface interpretations, you start to see something strange. Machiavelli wasn't glorifying manipulation. He was exposing the realities of human nature. He was showing us that people perform loyalty when they're afraid, that appearances are often more powerful than truth, and that those who seem to hold power often have the least control over their own minds. And here's the hidden insight. True confidence doesn't come from dominating others. It comes from understanding yourself so deeply that you cannot be manipulated. It comes from psychological sovereignty, the ability to see clearly, even when the world is full of illusions.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Think about that. Most people are confident only when they're in control. But as soon as something unpredictable happens, a failure, a rejection, a moment of vulnerability, their entire identity crumbles. That's because their confidence was never self-generated. It was borrowed from circumstances, from titles, from approval. Machiavelli's hidden secret is that the most powerful people are not those who control others. They are those who are not controlled by the need to control. They are free internally, and that freedom gives rise to a different kind of confidence, one that doesn't need to impress, because it's based on clarity, on strategic self-awareness, on the ability to act without being emotionally hijacked. Imagine this. A prince is surrounded by flatterers, advisors, enemies, and opportunists. Everyone is playing a game. Everyone is wearing a mask. How does he stay grounded? How does he lead without being consumed by paranoia, vanity, or delusion? Machiavelli's answer is subtle. He must learn to see human nature as it is, not as he wishes it to be. In other words, he must become psychologically lucid. He must understand that people are not evil, but they are self-interested, that virtue is not always rewarded, but appearances are observed, that fear, love, loyalty, they can all be manipulated, but only if you don't understand them. Once you do, you're no longer reacting, you're observing, choosing, moving with precision, not panic. So let's bring this to you. Where does your confidence come from? Is it real, or is it a costume you've worn for so long that you've mistaken it for your face? When someone criticizes you, do you get defensive? When you fail, do you spiral? When you're alone, do you still feel valuable? These questions cut deep. because they reveal whether your confidence is rooted in truth or in performance. And that's what Machiavelli forces us to confront, the difference between image and essence. Most people focus on image, how they appear, how they're perceived, how they rank. But essence is deeper. It's the part of you that remains steady even when the world collapses. It's the part that doesn't flinch when the mask falls off. But here's the twist. Machiavelli doesn't say you should reject image, quite the opposite. He says you must master it. You must play the game, but not be played by it. That's where powerful confidence comes from. Not from naively pretending the world is fair, but from engaging with reality fully and still not losing yourself. That's the trait Machiavelli hints at but never explicitly names. The ability to be strategic without being cynical, to be adaptive without becoming inauthentic, to be calculating without being cold. It's what I call lucid confidence. Clarity under pressure, self-awareness in power, presence without ego. Let me ask you something. What would your life look like if you stopped needing to prove anything? If you didn't need to be seen as strong or smart or successful because you knew who you were even in the dark? What would change in your posture, your energy, your relationships if you trusted your own perception more than you trust external approval? That's what Machiavelli is really asking us, not how to win the game, but how to see it. Not how to manipulate others, but how to free yourself from the need to. And yes, the world will still play dirty. People will still lie, flatter, betray. But when your confidence is rooted in clarity, not control, in awareness, not appearance, you stop being a pawn. You stop reacting. You start choosing. And slowly, you become dangerous, not because you're ruthless, but because you're awake. Why most leaders are frauds. Machiavelli's test for authentic power. We live in a world flooded with leaders, influencers, CEOs, politicians, gurus, creators. But how many of them are real? How many of them actually possess the kind of power Machiavelli respected? The answer is hard to hear. Very few. Most are not leaders, they are actors. They wear confidence like a costume. They project strength while being ruled by fear. They speak of vision while chasing applause. And Machiavelli centuries ago gave us a way to see through all of it. He gave us a test, subtle, brutal, and still relevant today, to determine whether someone's power is authentic or a carefully constructed illusion. And here's the shocking part. Most of us failed that test, not because we're weak, but because we don't even know we're taking it. Machiavelli's test is simple but piercing. Can you adapt to reality without betraying your essence? That's the question. Not can you win, not can you get people to like you, not even can you survive, but this. When life shifts, when allies turn against you, when plans collapse, when masks fall, do you become reactive, manipulative, desperate? Or do you remain grounded, strategic, self-possessed? Because here's the truth Machiavelli saw clearly. Most people only appear confident when everything is going their way. But real confidence, Machiavellian confidence, is revealed in the storm. It's in your ability to hold internal order when everything external is chaos. Let's pause on that. How do you respond to chaos? Do you tighten your grip, try to control everything, lash out or withdraw, or do you zoom out, assess the field, and make moves from clarity instead of fear. That's the difference between fragile power and real power. Fragile power needs conditions, it needs validation and control. But real power, the kind Machiavelli admired, is adaptive. It bends without breaking. It shifts without losing center. It knows that the game is always changing and that the player must evolve, not by abandoning values, but by refining vision. This is why most leaders are frauds, because they mistake control for power, charisma for clarity, and noise for influence. They don't lead, they chase. They don't see the board, they react to the latest move. They don't create strategy, they crowdsource it. And because of that, they're constantly performing, constantly adjusting their mask to fit the audience, constantly afraid of being exposed as unsure, vulnerable, or human. Machiavelli would call this weakness disguised as performance, and when the pressure increases, they break, not because they were never on top, but because they never knew how to be alone. Do you know how rare it is to find someone who can be trusted when no one's watching, who doesn't betray themselves for applause, who holds the line, not just in public but in private? That's real leadership, and it has nothing to do with titles or followers. It has everything to do with alignment. Alignment between mind and action, between values and strategy, between what you say and what you actually believe. Machiavelli didn't care about appearances, he cared about effectiveness. And effectiveness comes from inner coherence, not outer manipulation. So here's a question. Where in your life are you wearing a costume? Where are you pretending to be more certain, more confident, more together than you really are, just to maintain an image? And what would happen if you dropped the act and build confidence from the ground up, not based on how things look, but on how clearly you see? Because that's the shift Machiavelli invites us into, from performance to presence, from illusion to insight, from reaction to response. He's not saying don't be strategic, he's saying don't be fake. There's a world of difference. Being strategic means knowing how others think, how systems function, how emotions work, and then using that knowledge without losing your dignity, without selling your soul for short-term gain. That's the trait of real leaders. They know how to move through a corrupt world without becoming corrupted. They know how to influence without being enslaved to attention. They know how to plan without becoming rigid. And they know how to let go of the mask without losing their impact. So what's the real confidence Machiavelli points to? It's not domination, it's psychological agility. The ability to remain internally ordered when the world is disordered. The ability to operate in complexity without simplifying yourself. The ability to remain you, not a version of you edited for approval, but you, even when it costs. That's rare, and that's powerful. The art of perception. How Machiavellian confidence uses illusion without falling for it. One of the most paradoxical lessons from Machiavelli, one that most people completely miss, is that perception matters more than truth, but only if you're not fooled by it yourself. Let that sink in. The truly confident person, the Machiavellian strategist, understands that in the game of life, people don't respond to reality. They respond to what they perceive as reality. And yet, The moment you start believing your own performance, the moment you confuse the illusion you cast with the person you are, you've already lost. Because now you're no longer in control of perception, you're trapped inside it. Machiavelli understood that appearances are powerful tools. He wrote that a prince must appear merciful, faithful, humane, sincere, and religious, but he must be ready to act in the opposite way when necessary. Why? Because people don't really want the truth. They want the feeling of stability. They want someone who looks like a leader, someone who reflects the values they claim to believe in, even if they don't fully understand them. In short, people want a mirror, not a revelation, and Machiavelli knew how to give them just enough of what they wanted without ever sacrificing his position. But here's what separates Machiavellian confidence from manipulation. It's not about believing the illusion, it's about managing it. The moment you start performing for yourself, when you start thinking you are your mask, you become just another puppet in a world of actors. True confidence means using perception like a sword, not like a costume. It means understanding that while others are busy reacting to shadows, you're controlling the light source. You're not just playing the game, you're shaping the board. Let's be honest, we all manage perception. You do it in job interviews, in relationships, on social media, even in casual conversations. You adjust your tone, your word choice, your posture. You hide your doubts and highlight your strengths. That's not fake, that's human. The question is not whether you manage perception. The question is, are you doing it consciously or are you being consumed by it? Because if you start to need people's perception of you to feel whole, you're no longer confident. You're addicted, and that addiction will force you to betray yourself just to maintain the illusion. Machiavelli's confidence comes from detachment, not coldness, but clarity, the ability to see the illusion and still choose how to engage with it, to craft perception without becoming dependent on it, to wear the mask when needed, but never forget the face beneath it. That's what makes a person unstoppable, because they can move in any environment, with any audience, and never lose their center. So how do you develop this kind of confidence? It starts by asking brutally honest questions. What image are you projecting to the world, and why? What part of you is afraid to be seen without that image? If everything was stripped away, the titles, the followers, the attention, what would be left? Would you still recognize yourself? These questions hurt. They're supposed to, because they expose the places where your confidence might be a performance rather than a foundation. And once you see how much of your energy goes into holding up an image, you can make a different choice. You can start building your confidence from the inside out, not from the outside in. You can start showing up not to impress, but to influence, not by force, but by presence. Presence is what Machiavelli truly admired, the ability to walk into a room and command it. Not because you're the loudest, but because you're the most aware, the one who sees the undercurrents, the one who isn't fooled by ego, status, or flattery, the one who can navigate the storm without becoming part of it. That's what real confidence looks like. It's quiet. It's grounded. It doesn't need to shout because it's rooted in something deeper than perception: clarity. Machiavelli's lesson is this: you must master appearance, but never be mastered by it. You must understand illusion, but never live inside it. You must know how to shape perception and still know who you are when no one's watching. That's the paradox of powerful confidence. It looks like control, but it's actually freedom. Freedom from the need to be seen a certain way, freedom from the fear of being misunderstood, freedom from the addiction to applause. And once you taste that kind of freedom, you'll never go back. From the prince to the person, building unshakable confidence in a fragile world. We've followed Machiavelli through the corridors of power, through the masks of illusion, through the manipulations of perception, but now we come to the most important part of the journey. This is where we turn inward, because beneath all the strategies and sharp observations, Machiavelli's hidden secret is not just about ruling others, it's about ruling yourself, about becoming the kind of person who doesn't just survive in a fragile world, but thrives with clarity, with integrity, with unshakable confidence, a kind of confidence that doesn't collapse under pressure, doesn't chase approval, and doesn't need to dominate to feel secure. And this is where the real work begins. You see, the world we live in is not built to make you confident. It's built to make you dependent. Dependent on algorithms to tell you what's trending, dependent on likes to tell you your worth, dependent on titles, brands, echo chambers, and the more fragile the world becomes, the more unpredictable, chaotic, and fast-changing, the more people cling to symbols of confidence rather than the substance of it. They want quick fixes, instant certainty. They want to look powerful without the pain of becoming powerful, and that's why so many people feel empty even when they're winning. Machiavelli saw the same thing in his time, a world where people mistook appearances for strength, where leaders were praised for spectacle, not substance. And his secret, the one we've been unraveling, is that real confidence is not about being above others, it's about being anchored within yourself, so anchored that no matter what happens, betrayal, failure, rejection, you don't lose your ability to respond with clarity. That's what makes someone truly powerful. Not their position, but their presence. So how do we build that? How do we become the kind of person who doesn't need to pretend, doesn't need to chase, doesn't need to dominate, and yet naturally commands respect? It begins with a ruthless kind of honesty, not the kind that tears you down, but the kind that sets you free. You have to know who you are. Not just the parts you're proud of, but the parts you hide, your insecurities, your envy, your fear of not being enough. If you don't face those things, they will rule you. They will whisper in your decisions. They will shape your relationships. They will infect your ambitions. But when you face them directly, when you bring them into the light, they lose their grip. And in their place, something stronger emerges: self-trust. That's the foundation of unshakable confidence. Self-trust, the knowledge that you can handle whatever comes, that no matter how others see you, you see clearly, and from that clarity you act. You take risks, not because you're sure you'll win, but because you're not afraid to lose. You speak truth, not because it's popular, but because it's yours. You lead not because you crave power, but because you've learned to lead yourself. Let's be real. This kind of confidence doesn't come from reading quotes or watching motivational videos. It comes from living deliberately, from choosing discomfort over ease, from setting boundaries, from doing hard things when no one's watching, from failing with dignity and rising without bitterness, From knowing that your value isn't conditional, that your worth isn't up for negotiation, that your presence doesn't depend on applause. And this is where we transcend Machiavelli's world, because he taught us how to navigate power, but now we apply that wisdom to personal transformation. We stop asking, how can I impress others, and start asking, how can I become someone I admire? We stop trying to be kings in the eyes of the world and start trying to be sovereign in our own souls. Ask yourself, what would your life look like if you trusted yourself completely, not arrogantly, but quietly, deeply? What decisions would you stop avoiding? What conversations would you stop rehearsing and just have? What risks would you finally take? That life, that version of you, is not a fantasy. It's on the other side of honesty, clarity, and self-mastery. The world will keep rewarding performance. It will keep elevating noise over depth. But you don't have to play that game. You can build something deeper, something quieter, something real. And when you do, you'll find that the most powerful presence in any room isn't the one who talks the most or the one who demands attention. It's the one who doesn't need it. That's Machiavelli's hidden secret. The one trait of powerful confidence is not dominance, it's clarity. The kind of clarity that sees through illusion but doesn't get lost in it. That adapts to the game but never becomes the game. That uses perception but never loses the person. You don't need to be a prince to have that, you just need to choose it every day.